Hello and welcome to another killer episode of the Pittsburgh Sports Memories podcast. I'm your co-host Steve Word, and as usual, I'm joined by.
I'm Tim Hannon.
Hey Tim, do you feel like you ever had like a traumatic experience?
When it comes to Pittsburgh sports, I've had lots of them.
Yeah, yeah. Can you show me on the football where these players have hurt you?
Yes.
So yeah, today, we get those like highs of a championships and all the good stuff that comes with that, like Tim was talking about in one of our current events podcasts, where when the kicker from the Ravens missed the kick and people were jumping up and down and the whole city's in a great mood, and then you get the Houston Texans game from a couple weeks ago, and boy, the city really wanted to kill somebody, and apparently Mike Tomlin sensed that and ran for the hills. Um, yeah, so those lows can be just bad and very painful, and there's been many painful losses. So today we're going to relive those painful. We're going to have a nice little group therapy session here. It's fun to remember these guys. You can't always just live on the good times. You got to remember the lows sometimes, and it can be therapeutic and cathartic and all those other words that I've looked up on my thesaurus before we started. But are you ready, Tim? Are you ready to go through this? Have you emotionally prepared yourself?
Yeah. Well, and I think some of these guys, because I've seen your list, some of these guys, you just kind of hold your head down. You're like, oh my gosh, that guy just killed us. But there's other guys on here where I just looking now that some time has passed, you kind of have some respect for too.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Starting off, I'm going to start with a category called divisional foes, and I mean this one on a scale of like meh to oh my gosh, I'm in the shower crying is probably pretty close to in the shower crying kind of than just I'm sad for a day or two. Um, Steve McNair. Who was Steve McNair, Tim? He was a Pro Bowl QB for the Tennessee slash Houston slash Oilers slash Titans. That was a very confusing era of Tennessee football there. Tennessee slash Texas football. I mean, who knew Tennessee was such an oil producing state?
It's just like the lakes in Los Angeles.
Yeah, yeah. So how did he hurt us? He had an 11-5 record against the Steelers overall. He had 21 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. And this is just against us. So, and you got to remember early in his career he had some bad games. He didn't really become that, really thorn in the Steelers side and probably till like what 98, 99. And 21 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, 2,912 yards. His probably his biggest moment. I mean, there's kind of like two. There's one where it's like definitely the most important was he had a 2002 divisional game. He had 338 yards, two touchdowns, a rushing TD, but he did throw two interceptions. He's definitely that game is definitely more famous for the Joe Nedney kick. That I think we covered this in the what's it called, the Tommy Maddox season.
Yeah.
Um, then, of course, there's the legendary game, Tim. And September 24th, 2000, the Titans come to Three Rivers Stadium, and the Neil O'Donnell, the former Steeler quarterback, actually starts this game, and the Titans actually kind of dominated the game, and they were up 3 or 4 points late in the game. The Titans were, and then the Steelers put together a drive, and they take the lead with 9 minutes left of the game on a Jerome Bettis touchdown. So there's like 2 or 3 minutes left, and McNair's on the bench because the previous week, I think actually the week before that, he gotten hit in the sternum and he actually been hurt and he hadn't practiced for like either a week or two. And Neil O'Donnell is playing okay. They're scoring points, but now they've kind of given up the lead, but there's still some time left in the game. And on a second down, Jason Gilden hits Neil O'Donnell. And unfortunately for the Steelers, like you think, yeah, sack, what a great play, Tim. It puts them in like third and 15. Unfortunately for the Steelers, that bloodied Neil O'Donnell. His nose was actually bleeding because Jason Gilden hit him so hard. And Neil O'Donnell had to leave the game, which meant that Steve McNair had to come in cold, no practice. I don't even know if he had any practice throws.
He
And
was
this,
actually in the hospital that week. Believe
yeah,
it or not, he was in a hospital bed all week, so he wasn't. Talk about coming in cold.
yeah. He comes off the bench, and it wasn't like a first down. Like, hey, let's just give him an easy swing pass. No, it's like third down with like 3 minutes left. Gotta have it third down, and goodness knows he doesn't complete a pass to geez he to I want to say Chris Sanders, and it was a third and 11. Actually, he completes a pass the third and Chris Sanders, and then on the rest of the drive he goes 3 for 3 and throws a touchdown with a minute and 31 seconds left to Aaron Kinney. Who, why did Aaron spell his name Erron? You done wrong there, Aaron. I guess you couldn't call him Aaron. You call him Aaron, like error. Like, what is he, an error?
Iran.
He's an error. Except on this play, he wasn't. He scored a touchdown that clinched the game for the Titans. We have some really cool links on all this. There's like a Tennessee flashback where they interview Eddie George and
Jeff Fisher.
no, I don't know if Jeff Fisher was in this interview, but definitely Eddie George has a nice little take on it. And one of the Tennessee offensive linemen who talked about when McNair came in the huddle, and it's a very cool thing. We'll link it there on our website if you want to go check that out. Sadly, Steve McNair was killed in a homicide in 2009. Very sad end after he retired. But boy, he really stuck it to the Steelers that time, and he even went to Baltimore. I don't remember him doing a terrible amount against us at Baltimore.
Oh, he beat us. He beat us
Did
twice
he?
in 2006. The first
Well,
year he
there you
got there,
go.
he beat us twice. I mean, he just owned us. There was a stretch there where yeah, he always beat us. And I was at that game in 2003 River Stadium, and I can probably count on one hand the amount of times I've left the game walking back to my car just totally bewildered and befuddled and like not having any words, because usually you're either happy or you're frustrated or you're just whatever, this team isn't whatever. But that was that game, the Jesse James game. Like I said, there's like 3 or 4 games I can count on my hands. I just couldn't believe, first of all, he even came into the game because again he was in the hospital, and then he just marched right down the field and beat us. And like I said, looking back on it, you almost wanted to like give him a standing ovation, but not really, because just beating the Steelers yet again.
What I mean, I wonder, boy, if they would have been better off not hurting Neil O'Donnell there.
They would have been 100% would have been.
Although Neil still might have pulled it off. You never know.
Yeah, maybe, but I mean that was again getting McNair in there. Just he always beat us. Always beat us. You and I were at a game, Steve, the year before that. I want to say like on New Year's Day, or maybe like the day after New Year's Day. It was like the last game of the season. He torched us in that game. There's so many games over the years where he just
Yeah.
came in and beat us, including, like you said, the playoffs. It was really sad.
It wasn't like that early on, and like when I guess maybe Houston. Well, Houston was always like it was weird. Jeff Fisher kind of like had like that Mike Tomlin, like he always would seem to go 8-8, you know, 7-8. Like it was just odd. Like he never had like a bad team. He only had like one or two really good teams
That team was in limbo for a few years because they were the
because they were
Houston
moving.
Oilers,
Yeah.
then they were the Tennessee Oilers, and they were playing at Vanderbilt, then they were playing in Memphis. It really, that 90, like you said, 98, 99, that's when they became the Titans, and that's when McNair really found his footing because they finally had some stability. And from that point forward, really all the way till he got into Baltimore, like we said, he just completely owned the Steelers.
I think Eddie George in that interview said that actually that before that game, McNair had contemplated retirement.
Yes.
And that's kind of the game that you were at that he became a legend. He became Steve Air McNair because he had that nickname at college at Alcorn State, but then in the pros, this is kind of like a big moment in his career where it began. So you were there, the witness to beginning, Tim. There you go.
Yeah, unfortunately. There's a good podcast that a writer from Sports Illustrated did. It's like an 8 or 9 part podcast around the death of Steve McNair, questioning the official police story. It's a really interesting listen. I won't go into the details of that, but
It's suspicious to say the least. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Speaking on Tennessee, Houston, Tennessee, Oilers, Titans, whatnot. Frank Wycheck, Tim, you got to remember Frank Wycheck.
yeah.
Was he tight end, H back, a little bit of both? He was kind of like the predecessor to the modern tight end. He really was like a modern tight end. Could you imagine him playing in the league now? He would have had a field day.
Yeah, it's true.
But they kind of used him like that, and that was before because like Tennessee really never had great wide receivers. And so, I mean, well, they had Yancey Thigpen, didn't they, for for a minute?
For the 6 games that he was healthy for, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Frank Wycheck was originally a sixth-round pick by the Washington Redskins in 1993. They were the Redskins in 1993, so don't try and correct me. Ha. He was the other half of the Tennessee Titans connection that tortured the Steelers for years. Once again, I referenced that 2002 playoff game. He had 10 catches for 123 yards and a touchdown. Of course, Joe Nedney kicks the field goal to beat us. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler. He's one of 6 tight ends to reach 500 receptions in a career. Would you like to hear his career stats against the Steelers, Tim?
I can only imagine.
He had 51 receptions for 551 yards and 6 touchdowns. That's like, for a tight end, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's against one team.
Right. Yep. Yeah, he burned us a lot.
He was kind of the other half of Steve McNair there.
Yes. Yeah, because really Eddie George was probably their most.
But we could always shut him. That was back when we
yes.
could stop the run. So we could always kind of like Eddie George is the one person on that team that I think he had one good game against us.
That's what I was just going to say.
Yeah.
Eddie George was never the problem, even though he was the problem for every other team that they played. It wasn't him. It was McNair and Wycheck, like you said.
Even in that Joe Nedney game, do you remember like they knocked out? They actually concussed him. Like he was knocked out, like and he fumbled. Right. Yeah, I think that was Casey Hampton hit him, and they actually knocked him out. So like not just out of like literally concussed him. So
Frank Wycheck's another guy that tragically.
He got it. Yeah, he got another lot of concussions, and then he died in 2023 after a fall in his home.
Yeah.
So they're thinking that I think they did some research that might have been CTE related. He did take a lot of hits to the head, so fortunately for him. That is weird that both of them have passed away.
Yeah.
I mean, because they were relatively young. I mean.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
They didn't even make it past their 50s, so.
Yep.
Speaking of tight ends that killed the Steelers, how about Rob Gronkowski? There's another guy. Did you know Rob Gronkowski he played 7 games against the Steelers. His record was 5-2. And boy, he actually had less receptions than Frank Wycheck. He had 41 receptions, but he had more yards and touchdowns, 685 yards and 8 touchdowns. And you know how many playoff games Rob Gronkowski played against the Steelers?
Just the one, I think.
That would be 0. He never played a playoff game against.
Oh, he didn't play in that championship game?
I guess not. There's no stats, or he didn't have any stats. If he played, he didn't record a catch. I don't know how everybody else. You know what? That was the game they beat us with the lacrosse star guy.
Yeah.
It was like, here's some lacrosse player. Let's put him out of here and burn the Mike Tomlin defense. What a joke. So his biggest game was that regular season, the Jesse James game. Gronk had 9 catches for 168 yards. But he was another guy, like for whatever reason, they just could never seem to match up well against the tight end. And you would have thought they would have done a better job. I guess So his first season was 2010. When did Troy Polamalu retire? Not till like 2000.
After the 2014 season.
So I mean, looking, I mean, I don't know. He had good. He had 5 receptions for 72 yards and 3 touchdowns in 2010. 2011, 7 receptions for 100 for like 94 yards, and in 2013 he had 9 receptions for 143 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, that was
So
a
I
game where
mean,
they scored 50 plus points against us, if I remember correctly.
yeah, that was in 2000. So like even like I thought, well, maybe Troy Polamalu could have matched up against him. I don't know when did they. I don't remember when they drafted Ryan Shazier, but
It would have been after that.
yeah. But they never really. I guess Troy was at the end of his career there, and he just didn't have enough left in the tank. Because like I'd have liked to see that would have been a great matchup, prime Troy Polamalu against Gronk.
Yeah, and you called out the Jesse James game. No one remembers that, that play that got the Steelers down to the 10-yard line to set up the Jesse James touchdown, and it was a touchdown, was like kind of a fluky, like real long pass to Juju Smith-Schuster when the Steelers were like backed up all the way to like their own 20 with
Yeah,
not a lot of time left. And the reason that happened was because like Brady and Gronk just like marched. Gronk really by himself just marched down the field and got the go ahead touchdown late in the game, and we couldn't do anything to stop it. It was just like Gronk, 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 touchdown. And again, that if the Steelers just go 4 and out on their own 20, then that's what everybody remembers. But because of all the events that happened afterwards, I think people forget how badly he destroyed us in that game, especially at the end of that game.
yeah, and then Ben throwing that interception after, like just too aggressive.
Yeah, that's another thing people remember. Uh, so yeah, you're right. A lot of things from that game that people have forgotten because of the just
Well, the
egregious
that
call.
yeah, it was a bad call.
Well, bad rule. I mean, I we talked about that before. I think the refs kind of called it correctly, but the NFL had no idea what a catch was. And anyway, we won't rehash all that. But yeah, Gronk was a monster. Gronk was really good too. I mean, he was a really really good
I
player.
didn't look up his overall, but I'm sure he killed a lot of other teams too.
Sure, sure.
But so maybe it's unfair just to single him out against the Steelers, but there were other good players who the Steelers shut down, you know.
Right,
So he just wasn't one of them.
right.
um, how about Mark Brunell? Do you remember Mark Brunell, Tim?
Oh yeah, from the Jaguars.
Yeah, he was their first QB ever, Tim, ever in the history of the team. He had 16 touchdowns and 10 interceptions over his career against the Steelers, 2,601 yards passing, only a record of 7-6, which I was surprised by. I thought he would have had a much better record than that. His best season against the Steelers were definitely the 95 and 96 season. And then he kind of did it again in 2001, 2002. Very surprising that first game. Was that the first game of the season in 95, or was that like the
No,
second or third game?
no,
It
it
was it
was
was it was early in the season. And the Steelers hadn't settled on a quarterback at that point. And I just remember they went to Jacksonville and it was like, oh, it's an expansion team. The Steelers should walk all over them. They were just in the Super Bowl the year before. And like the Steelers lost like badly
well.
in
You're
all
you're mixing up two seasons. So
season. Am
so
I?
so
Yeah, okay.
95 was the year they were an expansion team. 95, the first year they were in the league, we went down there and we lost, which was shocking because
Yeah,
it was like their
that's it.
sixth ever game in the
Yeah,
NFL.
yeah. And we lost 20-16.
And that was the year we went to the Super Bowl. And then in 96, that was the first game of the season. We
That's
went
right.
down
Yeah.
there. And that was where, like you said, we hadn't settled on a quarterback. Jim Miller was the starter, but then Mike
Right.
Tomczak came in at the end. Greg Lloyd got hurt for the season in that game, and we lost again. And I think I think that's why Mark Brunell. It's funny, Steve. You said he was only 7-6 against us. I think the reason it sticks out in our mind more is because this team that wasn't even a team a few years earlier just came out and was instantly like beating us every
It
year.
wasn't just competitive like that. Like you couldn't go in there and expect to win. It wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were just they're very tough to beat. And so, yeah, I forgot about. So I did kind of mix up the 95 and 96 games, but it still happened the first time they ever played the Jaguars, they lost.
Right. And again, expansion teams back then. Well, I mean, the NFL hasn't expanded in a while, but
And
expansion
what used to
teams.
be like the Tampa Bay, like, oh my God, we didn't win a game for 2 years,
That's
or
right.
even
That's right.
even Seattle, like who was more respectable, wasn't like super competitive until like 3 or 4 years later.
Yeah, this isn't like I think when people think expansion teams, they might think of like the Vegas Golden Knights,
Yeah,
who had this weird thing where NHL teams wanted to unload contracts. The NFL, when they expanded, it's like you had to make a couple of your players available, and that's who the expansion team gets to pick from. And so expansion teams were supposed to be pretty bad until they have a couple of drafts and a couple of seasons to build up. And the fact that they owned us, especially at their home, I think it took us what 5 or 6 years to finally win down there.
I think so.
So
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean that was I think that's why I remember Mark Brunell killing us because of that context.
Which is odd, because like them and Carolina both were surprising. Like I think Carolina was in the championship game. Like I didn't. No, I don't think we did. We had a chance to have an all expansion team Super Bowl. I
Yeah,
think was it
that was in '96. That was the
96? Yeah,
second year for
because
both of them.
they beat Denver in
Correct.
that playoff game, and I think was that the year Carolina went to the championship game
Yeah,
in
Carolina.
Green Bay. They went to
Yes.
against Green Bay. Yeah,
Yep. Yeah. So you're right. It was
so I
literally
remember some things, Tim, but
you're right. Literally, both expansion teams were in the conference championship games in their second year. They both lost, but my goodness, like that's hard to believe.
well, I think they learned like when these teams came in, like the owners or whatever, like no, I'm not going to suck for 10 years and not have any attendance. And maybe the NFL realized too that like you're really trying people's patience. Like you're lucky to have a team in Tampa that the fans stood by and were so loyal. Because I was actually watching a what was it? Amazon has like a little series on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers history, and it was interesting, like how bad they were they didn't win. They're like 0-24. Like people
Yeah.
think 0-14. They were actually like 0-21, 0-20. Like they didn't win a game till halfway through. Again, halfway through the second season, and it was actually against the Saints in New Orleans. Archie Manning led Saints. And in Tampa, this is like how much the Tampa fans stood by them. Like when they came back, they had like they all met the team at the airport and stuff, and like it's wild. So I think that was kind of the reasoning is the the NFL didn't want to have a repeat of that. They wanted to have like these buy-ins in these new markets like Jacksonville and Charlotte. Is that where they are? They're in Charlotte, Carolina, wherever they are.
But I mean, it's still full credit to them for like Mark
For
Brunell
putting
was
together.
a
Well, Mark
backup.
Brunell was a backup on, but come on, look at the quarterbacks who were on that Green Bay team. They had Brett Favre, Ty Detmer, Mark Brunell, and do you know who the
Kurt
first?
Warner.
Yeah, who
Yeah.
walked out?
Right.
they,
Right.
how many of those guys became MVPs? Well, at least two. I
Right.
don't know if Mark Brunell was ever MVP. I don't think he ever was, but
He was
he was
very good though.
good. Yeah. So interesting and very good against the Steelers too. But there were some times the Steelers got his no, I think, maybe more of like a mixed bag, especially in Pittsburgh. I think the Steelers did much better at home than on the road against the Jaguars. So moving to hockey, do you remember a guy named Tim Kerr? Tim?
Yeah.
So
Yes, I
in it,
do.
yeah, he kind of killed us in '89, and that was the podcast, the False Summit podcast I did, and I remember talking about this guy. But 54 games played. He his record was 35-14-5. Hey, ties, cool. 31 games, 30 no, 31 goals, 30 assists, 61 points. Then in the playoffs, oh my goodness, did he murder us? 11 games played. He had 11 goals, 5 assists, and 16 points. And his record's only 6-5, and that's because he was on the Rangers team in '92 that the Penguins beat. And it's kind of interesting how, like, he was that big forward who'd stand in front of the net, and the Penguins really had no answer for that as that series went on in 1988-89. But then it's funny in 1991-92. the Penguins kind of learned from that, and they had the bigger, like they had the better defensemen. Like, did they have Shell? I think they had Shell Samuelson,
Hmm.
but they,
Yes,
yeah, like big guys that could deal with him. And the he couldn't push the. Now he was a couple years older too, but they couldn't play that game because like that was the Rangers series where they broke. Was that where they broke Mario's hand? I think, or
correct.
yeah. So whatever. I mean, he was a pain in the butt. I remember to play against. Well, I didn't play when he played against the Penguins, but I just remember hearing he was a problem.
Yeah, that was that era, like you covered in that Fall Summit episode. That was that era where the Flyers beat us for up 10 straight years at the Spectrum, and then we finally got a win there. But then we had to play them in the playoffs, and that was a playoff series that still hurts to this day that we lost. And Tim Kerr was like the face of that.
Well, too, like when they scored, was that Scott Mellenby that scored that goal and like did the windmill celebration and because that was Robbie Brown's like there that Flyers series was very painful because it was like the Penguins finally made it to the playoff after all those years. They actually win their first series against the Rangers, ironically enough, and then that second series they never could get out of that second series for so long. And I guess beating the Rangers finally was, kind of like their cathartic moment. They finally made it to the conference final. And, they was just kind of all downhill from there, it seemed, for the Penguins. Steve Avery, Tim, we're switching. We're switching around the sports here. Remember Steve Avery, or maybe you don't want to remember Steve Avery. I
Yeah,
guess
I
he
do.
wasn't in the division with the Pirates, but he certainly killed them in the playoffs since the Braves were in the West Division. Because, Atlanta is very west of Pittsburgh, I think. Or no, I was actually watching. So the Atlanta is further west than Cleveland, but I
There
don't
you
think
go.
they're further west than St. Louis or Cincinnati.
Or Chicago, who was
Yeah,
also in the East. Yeah.
yeah. So they're still trying to figure it out there, Major League Baseball back in the 90s. So in Game 6 of the 1991 NLCS playoffs, the Pirates are one win away from the World Series. Tim, they're gonna do it. It's what was that a home? That was in Three Rivers, I do believe.
Correct. Yes.
And Steve Avery throws a gem in a pitcher's duel with Doug Drabick. Avery pitches 8 innings, 8 strikeouts, 2 walks, no runs, and 3 hits. And Doug Drabick does pitch. And actually, this is the weird thing I found out researching this. Doug Drabick pitched a complete game and lost but he only gave up 1 run. And Steve Avery, and I think it was Alejandro Pena, whoever their closer was, pitched a complete game shutout. And for his part, Drabick gave up 1 run, 7 hits, 5 strikeouts, and 3 walks. And man, that's just a 1-0 loss. I don't know much about sports, but I know you can't win scoring 0 runs. The best you can do is tie or play extra innings. So I'm thinking that's how that analytics work. Do I need to consult the Rams analytics guy?
The worst thing about that game, well, there were so many bad things about that game.
They were 1 win away. 2 runs. 2 runs, Tim. Two
Yeah.
runs.
Yeah. Well, the thing that was really maddening about that was the second time in that series at the River Stadium that Steve Avery beat us 1-0, because game 2, he also beat us 1-0 against Zane Smith. And Zane Smith pitched a great game in game 2, but he gave up 1 run, which, shouldn't be too bad, just like Drabick. But Steve
I think this
Avery,
was more because we were actually like all we had to do was win this one.
sure. No, it was the worst of the two. But I mean, Mike, like twice in a 7-game series.
Well, yeah, Steve Avery just unhittable. Like Bonds, Bonilla, and Van Slyke just could not get it figured out against him, I guess.
Yeah, and all we had to do both times, like you said, was get a run. Both times we had really good pitching support on our side, but we gave up 1, he gave up 0. Like how do you? That was just that was brutal. And Steve Avery at the time wasn't a real well-known pitcher.
Well, during the regular season, He had 18 games pitched, 110 innings, 6-5 on his win loss, 3.75 ERA, 64 strikeouts, 39. That's really nothing that's super impressive.
Yeah.
But then the playoffs, 5 games, 24 innings, 3-1, 296 ERA, 20 strike. So he just for whatever reason he had the Pirates number. You
Yep.
know, that's enough about Steve Avery. that one hurt.
That one hurt, and like everybody remembers the year after that because of Sid Bream and all that stuff.
Yeah,
But that '91 team
they
was
probably should have went to the World Series
that
that year for sure.
that team was probably better than the '92 team. And like you said, they were up 3 games to 2. They had Game 6 and Game 7 at home, and that Game 6, that was the with the reigning Cy Young Award winner for the Pirates pitching. That was the one where you really thought this is going to be the clincher, and we're going to the World Series, and it didn't
I
happen.
forget what was the score at Game 7. I even forget.
3-0.
3-0. Who
Yeah,
pitched that? That was another
John
one?
Smiley for
Smiley,
us. Yeah,
and it was the was it
Glavin. I think it
was
was
it
Glavin.
Glavin? I
Yeah,
think it was Glavin.
I
Yeah.
think. Yeah, either Glavin or Smoltz was one of the two of them. But we couldn't score any runs in that game either. So yeah, literally couldn't score any runs in Game 6 or Game 7. And Andy Van Slyke's on record too, saying that they thought that was the best team that they ever had.
That's just like what a shame. Like you just think the Pirates just out of all the years they've been in the playoffs and stuff, it just for whatever reason they just and there's a couple other instances where they run into guys. Actually, the next guy, well, he's a couple next guys down, but we'll see that again.
Yeah,
Do you remember Kevin Hatcher, Tim?
yeah. Well, yeah, for multiple reasons.
So Kevin Hatcher during the regular season was 68 games played against the Penguins. He was a defenseman, stay-at-home defenseman for the Capitals. So he has 9 goals, 30 assists, 39 points. In the playoffs, 18 games, 8-10 record, 4 goals, and this is all against the Penguins, 9 assists, 13 points, which for playing for the Capitals, joy, he really was a pain in the Penguin side, although they do always seem to beat the Capitals. But he was just always such a pain. Always like, oh man, Kevin Hatcher again. And so finally in 1996, the Penguins got tired of playing against him, and yeah, they traded they got him. They got him in '96. They signed him to a contract. So Kevin Hatcher played for them for 2 years, and then wasn't it didn't do much for us. He was the only thing I ever heard is I know he lived up in South Point, and I remember somebody was telling me like he used to like drink beer and stuff like in his lawn and like hang out with the neighbors. Like he was just like a personable late neighbor apparently. So we'll have some fun fight video of Kevin Hatcher fighting Penguins tough guy Dan Frawley back in the 80s or 90s, probably the 90s, but fun times there of good old hockey fights. I always thought the reason, the Penguins signed him was because they just didn't want to have to play against him anymore, and he really was a Penguin killer. So,
Yeah, yeah. It's the old if you can't beat them, join them, and that never seems to really work out for our teams.
maybe they should have signed Gronk.
Still wouldn't have worked out.
Moving to the next type of player, I'm going to call these guys one game wonders. So, or the Oneaters. Um, a movie reference there. Do you remember Jake Arrieta? Who could forget Jake Arrieta? He was a career journeyman, but in 2015 he caught lightning in a bottle or something else in a bottle. Um, he once
Hey, allegedly, allegedly, Steve.
could have been. Well, we'll talk about that. Yeah. So, he had 7 wins, 22 wins, 7 losses, an ERA of 1.77. In the 2015 season against the Pirates, he had a 0.75 ERA in 36 innings pitched. And then that darn 2015 NL wild card game, he strikes out 11 in a 4-hit no-run outing. Why was he? Why? Because against the Pirates overall, he had 27 games and he always has an ERA of 3. But for some reason that season, and I mean, I don't know. I think he was either he had some sort of spider tack or he was doing something to the ball. I don't think it was steroids, quite honestly. I think it was spider tack because he was more of like a movement. He would try and get like a lot of movement on his pitch. So I think he was using an illegal substance, if anything. In the I think the Major League Baseball just looked the other way because they wanted the Cubs to win a World Series. And that's my tinfoil hat theory about Jake Arrieta. Because you look at it, it's weird. He had one good year, and that's it. Even for Baltimore, I think like the Pirates like smacked him around later, and it was like too little, too late. So
Yeah, he really did have that one, and that one year was like historic dominance. And he hadn't had it before that. He didn't have it after that. So I can see why people have conspiracy theories because it's just so unusual. But I remember when we had to play him in that wild card game, it's like, oh crap, we're not going to be able to hit him. And sure enough, we couldn't.
well, look, I'm even looking 2013. He has his 3.27 ERA. He only pitches 2 games against the Pirates in 11 innings, but they have 10 hits and 5 runs. You know, I don't know how. I just like it's weird to see a guy like, and this wasn't like Steve Blass where he just couldn't throw a strike. He just was never all that good. He wasn't like terrible, but he was like, yeah, he's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. So you don't think he was cheating, Tim? You think he just had a
I
good
mean,
year?
it's possible that
You just think he had a good year, maybe? I mean, I guess guys do have just like one good year here or there.
yeah, it's entirely possible he just caught, like you said, lightning in a bottle. It's happened before too to other athletes in other sports. It's just unfortunate that it was a 1 game playoff. If that
Yeah,
was a 7 game series, maybe we can
survive it.
bat our way out of that. But a 1 game playoff, we were toast.
So next up on our 1 game wonders is Cincinnati quarterback Jeff Blake. And boy, I have fond, well, not so fond memories of this guy. He was their quarterback in Cincinnati, like, which is odd because Cincinnati, like, he was a decent quarterback. He really wasn't terrible from 94 to 99. Mainly the season that I remember him for was the 95 season. And boy, man, did that was that Thursday night game, Tim, that me and you went to?
Yeah, yeah,
He just like I think it was Alvoid Mays. He could throw these balls like they would those moon balls where they would like go off the screen, and he was dropping that into Carl Pickens, and boy, the Steelers had no answer for that early in that season. In 2 games that season, he had 492 yards passing, 6 touchdowns, and no interceptions, and a 74 completion percentage. That's like insane. Like even the second game that was in Cincinnati, like I think the Bengals scored like 24, 28 points. And I don't know what happened like in the second half of that game, but the Steelers finally figured out like Cincinnati's defense, and Cordell Stewart had a great game, and that was the only way is they could beat Cincinnati that year is they outscore them. So that was a game in November. As a game in October that me and Tim were at, the Steelers lost 24-9, mainly due to Jeff Blake. That made the Steelers 3-4. It's kind of the low point of the season, and that was facilitated Carnell Lake moving the corner, and that really totally changed the Steelers season around.
The second game, like you said, was I just had the score in front of me here. It was 49-31.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it wasn't like it was Jeff Blake's fault that they lost that game because he scored 31 points. But the Bengals were just so bad back then that they just couldn't help but lose a game like that. So yeah, he just boy, if he would have played on, imagine him on those Jacksonville teams that we talked about, or those New England teams like with Gronk, he would have been he would have been a Super Bowl contender.
yeah. He played in 2002 with the Ravens. He did okay, better than Elvis Gerback, but not much. And it's funny his overall stats. I think he has 16 touchdowns and 15 interceptions because he really like that 95 season really was his best year. Like even the Baltimore year in 2002, he had 5 interceptions to 3 touchdowns. So wasn't great, but boy, that season in '95,
Yeah, you're right. He killed us in that '95 season for sure.
that really was like the memory of like, he definitely was maybe a 2 game wonder more than maybe a 1 season wonder,
There you
because he
go.
went to Arizona and didn't have a good game. Although he had 2 touchdowns in the 1 game in Arizona he played for against us in 2003, and 2 touchdowns and no interceptions before riding off into the sunset. It was just Jeff Blake, just one more time, gonna stick it to you. Another 1 game wonder. I remember this guy, Eric Metcalf,
Hmm.
and he was mainly a punt returner for the Browns. He actually played 13 games against the Steelers. He did he was kind of like a very smallish running back, like a Pegram, but he was really good at returning punts for some reason. And he would run the ball, but he wasn't a very physical runner. He in '93, how he killed the Steelers was the Steelers had really bad special teams that year, and there was a game where he has two two punt returns for a touchdown. So we'll play that right now.
Eric Metcalf has already taken 191 yards for a score. He has this one at the 25. Metcalf to the outside with room. Metcalf at midfield. Metcalf cuts back. He's still on his feet. Metcalf will go for the score. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and that one was with like a minute left in the game.
Yeah, it actually won the game.
Yeah, we were just going to pin them back deep and let our defense win the game, and he just returns it all the way. It was you could hear the announcers in the crowd there. It was shocking because he had already returned one. So that was another one of those games where you just shake your head and shrug your shoulders and say, "What in the world just happened?"
I think I looked it up. There's been like 13 or 14 players that have done 2 punt returns in a game in NFL history. There might be more. I think that the most is 3. Somebody had 3 in a game,
Oh wow.
which is just crazy. And it wasn't Devin Hester, which is crazy. And actually he did it again. Um, Eric Metcalf, and it was in Cincinnati, but he was with the Chargers in '97, so he did 2 punt returns twice in his career.
Oh wow. Yeah, he was a great returner.
He was an okay running back. Like I don't think really running back because he was so small was really his thing.
No, no, I mean like you mentioned like Devin Hester or like Mel Gray or
Yeah, yeah.
those guys who were just specialists as returners, and he was one of the best ones.
Talk about a position that really you'll never see again.
Yeah, the way that they have the kickoff set up now, it's harder for that to happen.
And punt return for touchdown, boy, you see it occasionally, but not all that often.
You definitely don't have a Devin Hester like player in the league anymore.
Yeah. You always wonder why those guys just it never translates to offense for them. Like, remember the Bears tried to put Devin Hester at like wide receiver and stuff. Like for whatever reason, it just never seemed to like translate as well. The
Yeah,
only guy like Dave Meggett was pretty good at returning kicks.
yeah, Deion Sanders.
Yeah. There's another guy, and he was a really good corner. So it's such a specialized skill, and it's just like some people are really good at it. Like Antoine Randall was good at it too.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Here's a guy like I just remember him for this 1 season, but for the most part, the Penguins kind of own this goaltender, and that's John Van Beesbrook. It's just a great name, John Van Beesbrook. In the regular season, he 63 games against the Penguins, 28 wins, 29 losses, 3.61 goals against, 8.79 save percentage, which is really not that great. In the playoffs, it gets even worse. 13 games play, a record of 4 wins and 9 losses, but a .915 save percentage. And the thing is, what's weird is like he really only had like those 4 wins. It all happened in 1 year. And that year would have been the 95-96 season of your Pittsburgh Penguins. And what had happened that year was John Van Beesbrook had left the Rangers, who the Penguins had actually tortured him on. I don't think, yeah, that's right. In 2 playoff series, Van Beesbrook had not won a game against the Penguins.
Wow.
And that was in 5 games, so in 2 different years. So the rat year. Do you remember the rats in Florida,
Yes.
Tim?
Yeah.
So this is once again Scott Mellenby, the legendary Scott. Maybe he was a penguin killer. I don't know. He threw his stick at the first game of the season and killed a rat in the locker room, or like I guess a rat was running across the floor and he like chucked the rat against the wall and killed it. And thank God PETA wasn't paying attention, because boy, Scott Mellenby would have gotten in trouble. But I don't know. Maybe they could have used Scott Mellenby back in the what was that, the 1500s? When was the Black Plague? The
Yeah.
he
He
could
just could
have
have
went around whacking rats.
whacking rats. Yeah.
The Pope needed his help. We have this plague going around, Scott. Can you kill some rats for us? Wow, historical. Who knew we mentioned the Black Death on this podcast? Here we are. He carried the Penguins to Van Beesbrook carried the Penguins to the Stanley Cup final, where they lost the Avalanche in 4 games. But that year they really shut down that Mario-led team, and the Penguins weren't bad. Who was the goalie? Like, they had a weird goalie. Was it? No, it was Barrasso. Was it?
It was Reggett. It was Reggett and Barrasso.
Because that was that weird. Yeah, Tom Fitzgerald like shoots a puck, I swear to God, from like
Section F in the Civic Arena. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I mean, seriously, he was up at the top of the seats. He was getting some nachos, and he just shot the puck down, and it went in the net.
Yeah, it was really far away. He almost was offsides when he shot it. But yeah, there was some. Here's some video. You can relive that memory.
Murphy gets it out of there. We're 1-1. Shots 30-20 in favor of the Pens. Score! A run and gun shot from the top of the circle by Tom Fitzgerald. Right out of nowhere.
Yeah, like you said, Tim, he was getting some nachos in the stands. I don't know what to say about that. The Penguins, I don't know. The Penguins probably would have lost to the Avalanche too that year. So I don't know. It would have been nice to see him go back to, like, because I remember thinking, well, they made the final, and every time they made the final, they always go on to the Stanley Cup final. But unfortunately, it was not to be because of Tom Barrasso not being able to stop a slap shot in a Game 7.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, like you said, it kind of all came down to that. But the reason it came down to that because Van Beesbrook was really stopping us the whole series. They were playing really tight defense. They
went to
were,
like that trap. They were like a
yep,
trapping team.
that was that era of playing that kind of style of hockey, which stunk because the Penguins had I think it was like the top 3 scorers in that league in the league that year with Lemieux, Francis, and Yager, and they just couldn't beat the Panthers. Now, to be fair, the trap was garbage, and the NHL shouldn't have allowed that, and it just nobody wanted to watch that. But then the Colorado swept them out of the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah.
So, Joe Sakic and Peter Forsberg figured out a way around it. We just couldn't.
I guess there weren't a lot of rats thrown on the ice because that was their celebration. Was it? Was it after a goal or?
Yeah, it was after a goal. They would throw like these. It wasn't real rats.
Real rat,
like
obviously.
Rats.
Oh, thank God! Can you imagine? Yeah. Horrible. Although people do keep pet rats, weirdly enough. I mean, apparently they make great pets, but.
Yeah, I'll tell you a story once we're off of the air about about that in my house.
Okay. Anyway, I smell a rat. Speaking of, well, I don't know what to say this guy. Michael Wacha. Do you remember Michael Wacha, Tim, at all?
Vaguely.
That's exactly how you should remember him. I just remember really being pissed that the Pirates lost to this guy. So he is like a pretty mediocre pitcher, kind of like what's his name, the Jake Arrieta, only not as celebrated. He had 19 games pitched, 19 games played against the Pirates, 100 innings pitched, an 8-3 win-loss record, a 3.59 ERA. In the playoffs, one game. He only ever pitched one game against the Pirates. He went 7 innings, 7 and a third. He won that game, 1.23 ERA, 9 strikeouts, 2 base on balls. I don't think he gave up any. He gave up 1 run in that 7 innings, and that was in 2013. So we're in 2013, and the Pirates have just come off the high of beating the Johnny Cueto game, which we covered in a whole podcast. I think it's the only playoff series ish that the Pirates have won since 1979, and so now they're actually one. They were a couple wins away from getting to the NLCS again, and they were in the NLDS, and they were up in Game 4. They're actually, I think all they had to do was no, they were up, and this guy Michael Wacha, who's a rookie, comes in and he pitches 7 1/3. It was the longest. It was a no hitter into the 7th inning by a rookie, and then since some guy from the Giants in 1912, and but Pedro Alvarez did break up Wacha's no hitter in the 8th with a home run. It goes to a Game 5 because that was it, because that was a short 5-game series. So the Pirates were up 2-1, and if they win one of the last 2, they're on to the NLDS, and they lose. This really was the key one. They really needed to beat Michael Wacha, who was, like I said, a rookie. No Chewbacca. They lose 5-game to Adam Wainwright, who's a really good pitcher. And that's it. They've not won a actual series since 1990. No, since 1979, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, the 6 years in the postseason since 1979, and I would argue that all 6 times they didn't advance to the World Series because the pitching of some other team was
just a little better.
Was just better and in some cases unhittable. You're going to talk about another one later where
But then come on, Michael Wacha, come on, that guy's
but again, Steve Avery, same thing. It's like that's sports. What did David Tyree ever do other than beat the undefeated Patriots?
Well, he scored that overtime touchdown against Pitt.
Yeah, right, exactly. So that's what I mean. It's like that's sports. You have your one moment, and that's all you really need sometimes.
I mean, Troy Nunes, Eli Manning, really. But anyway, I digress. It's really frustrating because that's like another example. The Pirates had this golden opportunity. They're kind of the opposite of the Steelers. Boy, they really, although the Steelers recently, but at least it was against like Tom Brady and the Patriots, like really good teams. But here's another guy you'll remember, Tim. This is going to be painful. Can you handle this? One Larry Brown.
The guy who, you want to talk about really good at covering grass. Nobody covered grass better than Larry Brown.
That 30-yard line wasn't going to score.
Yeah, he just, all the green was not going anywhere when he stood where he stood.
In 1995, he had 6 interceptions. He was a defensive back for the Dallas Cowboys. In 95, he actually was going into a contract year that season. So he's like a perfect example of like, I really got to get it together this year. So he had 6 interceptions, 47 tackles, and he really decided he wanted to cash in because he got 2 interceptions in the second half of the Super Bowl. And so he's like the Super Bowl MVP. He's on Married with Children. He's going to get a big payday. He gets signed by Al Davis at the Raiders, and he proceeds to get cut by the Raiders because obviously he just was, a paycheck guy that, like you said, was in the right place at the right time. Made a bunch of money from the Raiders. He actually returned to the Cowboys and had a mediocre season or 2 after, but boy, he is definitely the definition of a one-game wonder. And I don't even know how much wonder it was. It was just kind of right place, right time. He caught the ball, Tim. He could have dropped it.
Yeah. I always, we talked about it when we did the episode about that season. One of my biggest what ifs ever would have been if any other player on the Cowboys makes one of those 2 interceptions, right? Makes the second interception, because it would have been really, really hard to pick who the MVP was for that game. Because there really wasn't anybody on the Cowboys.
I think Emmitt Smith had like 50 yards rushing.
But it was all in the first half. He had nothing in the second half. And let's say the Cowboys still win, but it's Sharper or one of those guys gets that second interception, it would have been really hard to pick the MVP. But good for Larry Brown. Neil O'Donnell made him a very, very rich man.
Maybe he gives Neil O'Donnell a check every once in a while.
Doubtful.
All that married with children money. So next up on our list are Hall of Famers. And Hall of Famers, Tim. These are just guys that are really good, right? First up would be Albert Pujols. And my goodness, did Albert Pujols have a Hall of Fame career against the Pittsburgh Pirates. And especially, imagine like if he would have played his whole career in PNC Park, he might have broken Barry Bonds' record. I mean, this dude loved to hit in PNC Park. He played for the Cardinals from 2001 to 2011 when he did most of his home runs against them. He played for the Cardinals, I think, another time, but he played for the Angels some too. He actually played a long time for the Angels. He had 35 home runs in PNC Park, which is like a season's worth of home runs. And the Cardinals only play in PNC Park like what, 4 or 5 times a year? I mean,
not many, yeah.
Yeah, I mean maybe 6. They do 2 series, maybe.
Yeah.
So 6 games a year. That's crazy.
Yep.
His 57 home runs in total against the Pirates are the third most by him against any team. He did hit home runs 701, 702, and 703. And he ended up with 703. So that last home run against the Pirates was his last home run, Tim. How about that, huh?
Yeah, and that's pretty impressive because there's only 4 guys ever that hit 700.
I think so, yeah.
It would have been Bonds, Aaron, Ruth, and him.
Yeah. I don't think Alex Rodriguez hit 700.
I don't think he did either. I think it was
Mays.
just those 4.
No, Mays is like in the 600s, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, because Ruth had 714.
Yeah.
So I don't think anybody really came that close, other than Pujols.
Do you know Pujols used an illegal bat for most of his career? Nobody cares about that.
No.
Yeah. Fun fact: his bat was outlawed, and I forget which year. But like he was grandfathered in, so the Major League Baseball let him keep using it. So like when the people complain about stats and stuff and steroids, I don't want to hear it because they have spitball pitchers and Albert Pujols in the Hall of Fame using his bat that was banned. Because like another guy like borrowed his bat or something in a game and like got in trouble for it because it was like, oh, you can't use that because you're not Albert Pujols. What an idiotic sport baseball is with the rules sometimes. Like if you make something illegal, just make it illegal or don't make it illegal. You can't like, oh yes, you were. This isn't like a hockey helmet where like, well, whatever. It's not really going to help you play. It's just going to protect your head. It's dumb. Whatever.
Yeah, that's baseball.
Yeah, and they do it all the time with like rules. It's weird.
Yep.
So next up is a guy who's like he's had an odd career. Madison Bumgarner. Do you remember Madison Bumgarner, Tim?
Yeah, because again, like we said, the 6 times they went to the playoffs and got destroyed by another pitcher. He was one of them.
And what's interesting is like Madison Bumgarner in the regular season is not the same Madison Bumgarner that's in the playoffs. Like he literally goes in like a telephone booth, changes into like real Madison Bumgarner and comes out, okay, it's playoff time. He is probably like the most clutch pitcher in baseball history. Like if you need a game 7 guy, this is your dude. Because like in the regular season, the Pirates, he had an ERA of 3.63 and let's see. I don't know how many went, but like it's not that great of an ERA. Like it's like a more normal ERA. And he like I don't have his wins written down, but still it's just not that great. But then that one game, and unfortunately, you don't want to play the San Francisco Giants when it's an even numbered year, Tim, because that's when they win World Series.
Yeah.
So if you play them in an odd number year, you're okay. But even number years, you're in trouble. And the Pirates were in trouble because it was 2014. He just like, they beat him in this wild card round, and Bumgarner pitches a complete game shutout. I think he gave up 4 hits. I don't think the Pirates got a guy to second base the whole game. I mean, 10 strikeouts and 1 walk, gave up 4 hits. That's just insane. That's a great pitching performance in the playoffs in a one game. They get in that wild card game again. I think that was against Garrett Cole, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so.
So I don't know what to tell you about that, Tim. It was just once again the Pirates run into like a great pitcher and just nothing. But that killed me. That really killed me. That game. I really thought they had a chance, but I guess this isn't as bad as like that they should have beat Michael Walker. Like really, they just that one just always bothered me because I know like you could understand losing like Madison Bumgarner, even Steve Avery. I think is pretty good, but Michael Walker really. It's just because it's one game and anything can happen in one game.
Yeah, and I think the reason it feels a little different than Waka or Jake Arrieta the year after that is because nobody else could hit him either.
Yeah. I don't have his overall, like, he's like World Series MVP. I should have got his like his overall record in the playoffs. His overall record in the playoffs against everybody is unbelievable. He's one of the greatest postseason pitchers of all time. And when he goes to the Hall of Fame, which he will, if he's not there already, he will be in because of his World Series and playoff performances.
What I remember about the World Series that year was he shuts out Kansas City in Game 5, and then all they have to do is win Game 6 or Game 7, so they don't pitch him for Game 6, and Kansas City wins. And they really can't pitch him for Game 7 because it's like he only has like 3 days rest. So they started some other dude for like the first inning.
I remember that. Yeah, yeah. And then he comes in and pitches like 7 innings, no hit. Yeah,
Yes.
I remember that.
Yes.
I remember that distinctly. Yeah.
Yes. That's what I
mean.
They
put like an opener in, and it was a veteran guy who used to be good, but was kind of at the end of his career. And it was like, well, just get us like 2 innings, and if you give up a run or two, I think we can live with that.
Yes.
And boy, and Madison Bumgarner is just he's like a guy like you. I wish, man, you just love to have him on your team in his prime. He was absolutely unhittable in the postseason.
Yes.
Another guy that killed is a coach. Is the only coach to make the list. Al Arbor, Tim. We've mentioned him a couple times before. He coached the Islanders for a long time, from the 70s to the 90s. Famously orchestrated the comeback on the Penguins in 1974 when the Islanders were down 3-0. Also, he coached the Islanders when they beat the best Penguins team ever in 92 and 93 in that Game 7 loss. And then he came out of retirement in 2007 to get his 740th win of all time against the Penguins. Boy, that guy just killed the Penguins in many different eras over 50 years.
Yeah, I can't even get started on the New York freaking Islanders and how badly yeah, there's just so many bad memories there, and he's
you always have Brooks Orpik overtime goal, Tim. Just think of that.
Yeah. Great.
Martin Brodeur. Here's another Hall of Famer, and he had 49 wins, 29 losses, a 2.45 goals against, 904 save percentage. He was actually 11-6 in the playoffs against the Penguins, a 907 save percentage in the playoffs. And let's see, I don't think the Penguins. I know it says the Penguins did beat him one time, I guess in 98-99.
Yeah, that was that year that we did the episode on Yager scoring the goal that people said saved the franchise.
So
so we did get the best of him once,
but for the most part, boy, man, he was really, really good. He had big saves too on both Yager and Mario. I remember it was 94, the 2000 season, one of those. I just remember. Like I don't know. Was he a product of that trap system, or was he like? I think he was a legitimately good goaltender. You put him on any other team, he was really going to be really good. So
yeah, the year I remember the most was the year that Mario came back, and we made it all the way to the conference finals, and we had that game 7 where we beat Hasek. Darius Gaspari just beat Hasek in overtime, and then Brodeur just completely stonewalled us that entire series. We had no chance.
That would have been 2000, 2001 then. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like, definitely a Hall of Famer, and it kind of goes back. Like, before I do the last guy here, like, are these are they like Steeler, or are they like Pittsburgh sports killers, like Penguins, Steelers, Pirates, or are these guys just Hall of Famers and they're just really good and they're good against everybody? But the ultimate Pittsburgh killer, sports killer guy is one Tom Brady, for sure. 9-4 record in 13 games against the Steelers. Just in the playoffs, he was crazy. 5 touchdowns and no interceptions. He had 58 completions with 81 attempts. That's grand total in the playoffs. He had 30 touchdowns and 5 interceptions of his career against the Steelers. He only ever threw 1 pick 6 against the Steelers. I can actually remember it. Do you remember what game?
Yeah, it was Deshae Townsend on Halloween 2004.
Yeah. That's pathetic, isn't it? The only other like big interception I can remember him throwing was to Joe Hayden. Was that
2018?
Yeah. I think the biggest time, like we talked about, this is probably one of the most painful losses outside of like Pitt, West Virginia in 94. I don't know, what is it with years that end in 4, Tim, that causes painful playoff losses? The 2004 Steelers team, 15-1. And have we covered this in a podcast? I think we.
You did an episode on it about Ben's rookie year.
Yeah. 15-1. And I really thought, boy, if the Steelers are ever going to win the Super Bowl, I had been a Steelers fan since 91, 92, and just thought, boy, man, I'd really like to see a Super Bowl in my lifetime. It just felt like we came close and we just could never get over the hump. And that, boy, he went 14 for 21 in that game, 207 yards, 2 touchdowns and no interceptions. And he wasn't like, I don't know, we just could never beat him for whatever reason. I think it was just because the Steelers, the way the Steelers play defense, they play a lot of zone. And Tom Brady against the zone just is, he's very accurate and he's very smart with the football. And like a guy like that, I always thought he always struggled against like more like the Rex Ryan, the Baltimore Ravens defense, because they played more man. And that year they beat him in, 2018. The Steelers played a lot more man against the Patriots. So I don't know. He definitely the all-time, that game just killed me. I thought the Steelers would never, ever win a Super Bowl, but thank God I was proved wrong the next season. So what a payoff. Made for, it's always darkest before the dawn, right, Tim?
Yeah. That's true. And 3 AFC championship games. And he's 3-0 in all 3 of them. And I know the first one, Bledsoe had to come in and all that because he had gotten hurt. But still, 3 AFC championship games, and then all those regular season games where he just owned us.
Yeah, 2016, there was the 3 touchdown, no interception game against the Killer Bees, like with the stupid lacrosse player guy that we mentioned earlier in the podcast. And just what a joke like the Steelers defense was against him. They just never did. I mean, I guess he torched a lot of other defenses too, but it just seems like, there were just players like Vinny Testaverde was never all that great against the Steelers. And I mean, I guess he's not a Hall of Famer, but even Eli Manning, they could shut down at times, Tony Romo. But like, just for whatever reason, Brady, man, even Marino at times they could shut him down, but
yeah, Montana too. They actually had a really good record against Joe Montana. Not that they played him a whole ton, but I mean, Brady's Michael Jordan, and what NBA teams can say like, well, Michael Jordan never really did anything against us, the Milwaukee Bucks. Like there's no team that can really say that.
Maybe the Pistons.
Yeah, the Pistons early in his career.
Yeah.
But I mean, Brady, and like you said about the defenses, it wasn't Tomlin or Cowher or LeBeau, or it was just everybody. It was whoever. it went across eras.
They always kept the same scheme for the most part. Well, thank you for joining. If you could go ahead and like us on whatever podcast service. Thank you so much for everybody listening all over these years, and we definitely appreciate it. Appreciate the feedback, and we'll catch you next time on Pittsburgh Sports Memories.